Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to start in just a moment, but first I wanted to thank Simon Cook and his high school students who provided that great introduction to this afternoon's session. So thank you very much, guys. I want to mention that their presence here isn't just a coincidence. Simon led a research project this year, and some of the music teaching methods that were part of his research were actually used with these students. So they're actually an example of the work that's come out of the research work that Simon did this year. So that will be the connection. When Simon does his presentation, you'll have that kind of as a touchstone to think about. I'm going to come back and do some quick housekeeping in a moment. I first want to just make sure, again, I walked around to every table. Everyone has a device. We are going to be using, whether you're using an iPhone or an iPad or a laptop, we are going to ask you to kind of log in and be part of this afternoon's session. So if you have any difficulties, getting logged in or finding the piece, we'll be around to help you. And if you don't have a device, we do have spare devices that we can loan you for today. So we want to make sure that everyone is able to participate. So without any further delay, I'd like to introduce David Thomas, who's going to welcome us all here this morning, or this afternoon.
Thanks, Ben, and thank you for putting up this photo of me, which was several years ago. It's really kind of you. Maybe I should get a more recent one taken. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to ACS Cobham International School. I'm David Thomas. I used to be the chair of the board, and I'm now the chair of the ACS Charitable Foundation that offers bursaries and scholarships and grants to some of the outreach programs that ACS is so proud of. It's really great for me to be back here today because the SIM is one of the things that I hold most dear to my heart. In all of my time as board chair, I think the decision to inaugurate the SIM, more than 6 years ago now, is one of the decisions that I'm most proud of. And it really has been a transformational step change for our schools and for our community. So this event today showcases the enthusiasm and the professional pursuit of excellence that we encourage, support, and value in all of our teachers and all of our faculty members. It's great to be here, and I really would like to thank all of you who've joined us from outside of ACS community today for joining us and sharing in this event. I, like all of you, am looking forward to this afternoon's presentations. There are going to be 9 of them. Our project leaders will be presenting their research projects for this year and their findings. They, like many of you, have travelled from across London to be with us this afternoon. And I'm really excited that we're also joined by some of our colleagues from our ACS Doha campus and staff members from Statham, Clapham High School as well, also Cricket Green School, the Director of Research Schools International, and a group of graduate students from China and East Asia who are currently at the Institute of Education here in London. And they will be returning to observe our ACS teachers in the coming weeks. So when the ACS Board of Directors first proposed to inaugurate the Centre for Inspiring Minds, they had hoped it would become a centre of inspiration that would inspire both our school, the community, and the wider education community. And all of you who are gathered here today are an indication that we have succeeded and made great strides to that end. In our 6th year, I believe that the Centre is more relevant than ever when it comes to providing growth opportunities for our faculty, and opportunities that really drive effective teacher development and learner outcomes in our classrooms. So in celebration of our 6th anniversary, I'd like to share 6 things with you, things that are relevant to the Centre that you might not know about. So since the Centre opened its doors in 2013, we have supported teachers investigating 46 different research questions. 46, I mean, that's quite an achievement. These practitioner-led action research projects have involved more than 180 project leaders and project team members from across our 4 schools. We have provided professional learning experiences for more than 1,800 workshops and course participants. And last year we earned recognition from the UK-based National Foundation for Educational Research for our extended level of research engagement. This year we've supported ACS-wide explorations of 3 heads of school-led initiatives. These are focused upon service learning, learning for sustainability, and global language communities. And in June, the Centre for Inspiring Minds will host its first ever Summer Institute. This will be a 2-day deep dive into the theory and practice of nurturing multiple language literacies in our classrooms. To me, these are tangible demonstrations of how much the sim is an important part of the fabric of ACS schools now, and I'm really excited to when we think about those things. So all of us here at ACS think that at age 6, the Centre for Inspiring Minds really is fulfilling the objectives that we'd set out around the boardroom table more than 6 years ago. We wanted to provide a forum where our highly effective educators would be supported in their pursuit of learning, aimed at improving learning outcomes and advancing the school's vision, to make a difference and also to inspire us to be even more ambitious in our efforts to develop our research and data-informed approaches to the school environment. So in a minute we'll be hearing from these research practitioners, and their work is at the heart of our efforts to build this research-led, research-engaged school culture to which we are committed. So like you, I'm looking forward to hearing about their work. As you listen, I would also invite you to think about your experiences and how your professional interests perhaps match some of the experiences of our people here today and what you have in common. I also invite you to think about how, in whatever role you have in your school or institution or organisation, you can also use research that we're talking about to investigate, innovate and inspire. And those 3 words are really important. You'll hear them a lot this afternoon. Investigate, innovate, inspire. I want you to remember them. When I hear those words, I'm reminded of the individuals who work tirelessly to make the sim such a resounding success, because there's a whole lot of work that underpins this, as you can imagine. And today I really have to acknowledge Ben Wren, our head of centre, and also Latifa Hassanali, for their grit, optimism and drive year after year. They had a bit of a battle over the years, I think, to make sure that the sim was living up to our high aspirations, and they've more than been equal to that task, and we salute them. So today is also tinged with a bit of sadness for me, because, as many of you know, we're saying farewell to Ben this year, and also to his wife Diane as they're moving back to the US. Ben and Diane have had such an important impact upon ACS over the years. Ben joined us in 2008. I think Diane came at the same time. They were a package deal, shall we say. And he's held a variety of key roles across the school since then. In 2011, Diane and Ben took an immense leap of faith by moving to Doha to set up our new school in Doha at that time. They were really transformational in terms of helping to seed the DNA of ACS into our new school, and that was a huge success, as we all know. On Ben's return from Doha in 2011, he took over the leadership of the centre and immediately set about giving the centre a new drive and a new impetus, the fruits of which we will hear about today. Ben and Dan have been a really transformational presence at ACS during their time with us. And in terms of the centre, Ben has investigated, innovated and inspired me in particular. It's hard to imagine ACS without Ben and Diane. And I also want to mention, on behalf of Tim Cagney, who's our MD, he's not here today, how much that we wish them well and we'll miss them, but they will always be part of the ACS family, and we hope to see them back here often. So once again, we're pleased to have you with us this afternoon. It's great to see so many people here. I'll hand the agenda back now to the Head of Centre, Ben Wren, and Programme Manager Latifa Hassanali, who will get us started with our first group of presenters. Thank you.
Good afternoon again. I first want to thank David for his role in establishing the Centre for Inspiring Minds and for traveling all the way from Wales to be with us here today. You may have noticed by now that we're actually going to be filming today's event. And so for those of you who are from within the ACS community, you'll have fairly easy access to this, and we'll tell you how to access the film afterward. But if you're here from outside ACS and you'd like to see a recording of this afternoon's program, we're going to ask you just to contact us and let us know that you would like to do that. And we can describe to you what you would need to do to set that up. I'm going to just do a tiny bit of setting some context for this afternoon's presentations. And I want to begin by first emphasizing that all of the work you're going to be hearing about this afternoon has used one of two formal research methodologies, either action research or narrative research. 7 of our projects are based on action research, and 1 of our projects is based on narrative research. And I know that when our presenters are presenting, you'll be able to figure out which ones are action research and which one is narrative, and I'm sure they'll also indicate that to you. In both of those methods follow a research cycle which is built around the 3 words that David just mentioned a moment ago: investigate, innovate, and inspire. The investigation stage is really that stage when people are pulling together the background research, they're developing research questions, they're developing their methodology. The innovate stage is where they actually begin putting those things into practice and collecting the formative and summative data that they need to understand the effectiveness of the things that they've taken on. And the inspire piece is when they actually begin sharing that information and they're learning with other people. So this afternoon is certainly an example of work at the inspiration stage. But you're also going to hear this afternoon, and you'll recognize that we're not at the end of the school year, all of these projects that you're going to be hearing about today are works in progress. So this cycle, and all of you who've done research know that research is not a linear process. You don't go from step 1 to step 2. All of our project leaders are taking a big step forward to begin to inspire you by the work that they're doing, but they're then going to be taking a step back to finish their summative data collection and their analysis and producing their research reports. So again, as you listen to the presentations today, do keep in mind that they're all works in progress. One of the other very interesting things about both of these methodologies is in both of these methodologies, the researcher is also a participant in the research. And of course, that makes it very different from more kind of scientific approaches to research, where the researcher is an external observer. Because this is research about educational practice, these teachers are designing things and they're delivering them and assessing them and evaluating them as part of the research project. Their presentations this evening are based on a participatory action research methodology called story dialogue. And story dialogue is an opportunity for each of our presenters to put together a story of the kind of the research journey they've been on over this past year. And they're going to be sharing it to you this afternoon for the purpose of getting your feedback. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how you're going to do that in a moment. So one of the very, very important parts of action research is peer consultation. Sharing what you're doing, what you're learning, how you're interpreting it with a bigger group of educators and a bigger group of people in the educational field, and getting feedback from them and using that feedback to compare it to your own conclusions and the way that you're actually analyzing information. So one of the really interesting things about this afternoon is we're asking all of you to actually be a part of this research process. We're thrilled to have all of you here this afternoon, but we're going to actually ask you to do a little bit of work. And to do that, Latifa Hassan Ali, who works with me in the Center for Inspiring Minds as the project manager, is going to be organizing your online participation. And let me just say a little bit about how that's going to work. So we have designed 2 prompts that we would like you to respond to this afternoon as you listen to each of our speakers. First, we'd like you to tell us how the speaker's experience connects to your experience. So when you hear them talking about what they're doing, how does that resonate with you? Have you had a similar experience? Have you had a different experience? So this is a chance for you to actually interpret what you're hearing and actually think about how this connects to your own practice. The second part of it is just telling us what you wonder. What questions do you have for the researcher based on what they're telling you? And again, you can begin to see how both of these forms of feedback are really going to help the researchers in the final stage of their research process. Oh, let me go back. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to ask you to connect to this bit.ly. And when you connect to that bit.ly, what it'll do is it'll take you to a section of our Center for Inspiring Minds website, and you'll get this picture. All that you need to do is click on the image of whoever it is that is speaking at that moment. And with any luck, the pictures look enough like the people who are speaking that you'll be able to tell who they are. And as soon as you do that, it'll open up a second screen, which is the actual Padlet. In order to add a comment, all that you need to do is click on the icon in the far right corner at the bottom, and it'll put up a text screen. You type whatever you want into that screen, and then you drag it to whichever side of the Padlet it belongs on. So if it's a connect statement, move it to the connect side. If it's a wonder statement, move it to the wonder side. You can do this at any time during the presentations this afternoon, and you can go back to a speaker and add a comment or a question even after that speaker is done. The boards will remain live during the entire time that the speakers are speaking. And at the end of that session, Latifa will summarize what you've said and present it back to the presenters, and they'll have an opportunity to respond to that. Also, if you are a Twitter user, if you'd like to tweet pictures or comments from this evening's event, we're at hashtag #SimPostcards, and again, both the hashtag and the bit.ly information are at each of your tables. All right, on to the real bit of this afternoon. We have 8 presentations that we are going to be offering to you this afternoon. We have 9 different project leaders, so with one of our projects we have co-leaders. And interestingly, although we didn't actually realize this when we were setting up the projects at the beginning of the school year, 4 of these projects have to do with developing literacies. So we're going to have a presentation on oral literacy, so literacies around music learning. We have a presentation on math literacies and math literacies as they connect to science learning. We have another piece on literally reading as a literacy. And finally, we have a piece on ecological literacy. So I really want you to kind of look for that kind of theme or strand as you hear these 4 presenters. All of them are going to talk about very, very different projects, but they all have to do with developing specific kinds of literacies. So if I can, I'd like to ask Simon Cook and Mary O'Gorman and Margaret Dean and Nancy Fernandez and Chris Hupp to please join us up in the front. You guys want to have a seat? In just a moment, I'm going to call them up one at a time, and I'm going to do just a really, really brief introduction, and they are going to introduce themselves in the context of their work as part of their presentation, so they'll tell you more about who they are and what they do. And each of them is going to speak for approximately 10 minutes. They're going to speak one after another, and again, please comment on their presentations as they're going along using your bit.ly and using the Padlets. And at the end of it, we will take a look at what you've said, and we'll feed it back to them, and they'll have a chance to respond.